Hello, guys. Welcome to season 3, episode 3 of the Recovery Room. We're here with the regular faces. If you want to just introduce yourself, Kim, you go first.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Quinlan. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in California and USA.
Drew.
Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Linsalata, creator and host of the Anxious Truth podcast, and the one officially with the Rona today. Not really, but I just coughed up along today. Bear with me. It's okay.
Last but not least, Joshua with his fantastic message on his t-shirt.
It's my message. Honestly, it's great. I'm Joshua Fletcher, Anxiety Josh, psychotherapist here in the UK, specializing. I'm working with anxiety disorders, and I write great books that you should buy so I can add stuff to my office.
Fantastic. So, guys, this week we're talking about self-sabotaging, and fantastic topic. Lots of questions to get through. Before we do it, I just want to add a new segment, which is anxiety in the news. So I'm just going to pick, I think we mentioned it last time, just pick a few topics. Obviously, you guys haven't done your research on it. So it's just like your opening statement, or just what you think of the news article, the message that it brings, and just your first take on it. The first thing I want to say, though, is Drew, Untangle Your Anxiety audio version. I believe it's a wrap, yeah?
It is a wrap. I'm just waiting for the okay from you guys to hit the send button, and it's good. It's good. It's really good.
That is so exciting. Kim, if you want to tell everyone your fantastic news regarding your podcast as well, that is something you should be shouting from the rooftops.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So your Anxiety Toolkit podcast was nominated as the best science-based podcast for anxiety for 2022, which is like, of all the categories, that's the one I want to be in, which makes me very, very happy. So thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting.
And Joshua, you've been working on some fantastic projects with some brands that we might have heard of. If you want to tell people what you've been doing.
Yeah, I've been working with Microsoft recently, doing a project on productivity anxiety. I think it's nice. I think it's good that brands are doing this, not just saying it's Mental Health Awareness Week, actually doing a whole campaign on the psychoeducation of productivity anxiety, which is actually nice. It's actually nice to see that that's happening.
See, like just to point off that, seeing a link between consumerism and them wanting to put psychoeducation behind their message as a brand, yeah, I'm really all for that, Josh. It's lovely to see. The first news article, guys, that I pulled up. So I just want whoever to go first, and just your honest take and what you think of it. So I won't read the article. I'll just say the news headlines and see what you think. So, massive birth cohort study finds young adults with social anxiety are less likely to meet a range of educational outcomes. Who wants to go first with that one?
Did you say educational outcomes?
I did. Mm-hmm. You go first, Kim.
I'm not surprised by that at all. I think that social anxiety does impact our ability to be very present, right? Because of your thinking about what other people may think of you. We sort of understand that social anxiety is a shame disorder as much as it is an anxiety disorder. So yeah, if you're in a place of anxiety, it's very hard to concentrate. It's very hard to ask to get your needs met. It's very hard to advocate for yourself, particularly if you're struggling. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, social anxiety is tied to self-esteem, isn't it? I like working social anxiety because it's the perfect thing to work with integratively. You know, whilst Kim's being all dogmatic and ERPing the hell out of everyone, I can actually pull upon other modalities and be like, well, why? Well, why is your threat response going bananas when someone's looking at you? Particularly someone perhaps in authority, someone who's loud, doing all these things. And yeah, it can affect your confidence. It can, it will help. It'll make you doubt going for job interviews. It will make you doubt believing that you can put you all into an essay. It can make you doubt kind of going up against people if you have to in the dog-eat-dog world. Yeah, social anxiety will make you doubt your ability, and also it will often draw you to placate people and their opinions as opposed to listening to your own.
Drew, have you got anything to add to that?
I think those are great responses. I have the question that pops in my mind would be, I wonder how that gets impacted when the mode of learning switches to asynchronous online learning, where you're not face to face with that authority figure. You don't have to interact directly with the professor or the teacher or whoever, the instructor or your classmates. I have to wonder, is that helpful for the person with social anxiety in the short term in terms of helping them cope with the class better? But then again, is it harmful in the long run because it doesn't really help them move past the problem? So I'm not surprised at that result either. And
that's a great question. Great question.
Yeah.
And it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Why you say? So we'll do 3 headlines and we'll go into the self-sabotaging. So the next one is a large new study concludes. So it's a study from Sweden. Over 400,000 people have been followed from birth to the age of 25. And the study concluded that a physical activity lifestyle has a long-term association with the later development of anxiety disorders in both men and women. So the people who had a more physical lifestyle was less likely to develop anxiety disorders.
I'll take that one. I'm not surprised by that at all. That's really good news, because I think so much of this is when we lose confidence in our own bodies when we wind up in these tough spots, right? So everything your body throws at you, interpret as something dangerous, and you start to see yourself as frail and very easily broken. I'm right on the edge of just literally just breaking down. I'm going to die. My heart's going to give out. So I think if you are in a situation where you are continually showing yourself through this physical activity that you hopefully enjoy, it's an enjoyable part of your lifestyle, that your body is capable, I would think that is going to give you some natural resiliency against falling into that trap of no longer trusting your body or thinking that your body is frail and broken. So that makes sense to me.
Do you think people with anxiety might read that and become obsessed with physical activity? Have you heard of that? Or Josh or Kim, have you heard people like thinking that physical activity is the answer to anxiety disorders?
You get people literally running away from their anxiety. Literally. I must get up and run. I must go to the gym. I must do these things so I don't feel anxious. And people can take it the opposite way. A lot of my clients don't know how to stop. You know, Drew's new book's about taking the 7% things 7% slower. I truly believe learning how to stop is a skill. That information, it surprises me a bit. I think it affects everyone who's super active and who isn't. I think after you've been diagnosed and you've got your confidence back, if you're someone who finds interoceptive exposure quite challenging, then yeah, I think exercise in the long term is going to help you not relapse into panic disorder. But sometimes when you mix anxiety disorders with like other stuff that's going on, you get people literally running away. One of my mates, he knows who he is, he won't mind me kind of mentioning this, but he's just completed that famous ultra marathon in the Sahara. I know, because he says that, it's a good way for me to deal with my grief. I'm like, dude, that ain't dealing with your grief.
Wow.
You're hurt, like running 125 miles and 50 degrees Celsius is insanity. And yet, but conventionally there's this narrative of, well, keep up the exercise, you're doing right. Well, actually, you can actually have a very unhealthy relationship with exercise too. Whether it's anaerobic, aerobic, and even strength, like people absolutely hammer in the gym. They've got legs growing out the shoulders, because it's.
Hey.
Kim, what's your take on that?
Well, I'm not surprised. I think what we're missing here is to what degree of exercise they're in the study, right? So if we're talking about 20 to 30 minutes of aerobic exercise, I think that is an interoceptive exposure. It helps people to be able to tolerate the feeling of anxiety. So that doesn't surprise me at all, but I think that there is a degree where, as with everything, it's nuanced, that if you're going way beyond that and you're using it as a way to tamper your anxiety, or in my case, your anxiety management with exercise becomes a whole nother eating disorder issue, then you've got another set of problems. So I think the big question I have is, how much exercise are they reporting? Are they including the people who are over exercising? That would be an important question to ask, to look into the research.
Fantastic, great answers. Last but not least, and then we'll get on to the questions from the community. So COVID anxiety accelerated memory decline in older people. So there was a study of 6,300 people who took an online study. It's been published in a scientific journal, and it's saying that they experienced a decline in the short-term memory equivalent to 6 years of natural aging, according to the study.
Because of COVID anxiety or getting COVID?
No, because of COVID anxiety.
I'm sorry, what was your name again? See what I did there?
Yes.
Never mind.
Has anyone got a take on that? That was from the Times as well. So
wait, having anxiety over COVID-19 has resulted in some measurable short-term memory loss
for the older generation.
The older generation.
Well, it would make sense because a lot of days are Groundhog Day as well. Like, memory thrives off when things are different, but like, surely days must kind of blend into one, particularly if you're older and vulnerable. I know some people in my life of the older generation. Some people, we've got like people in care homes and stuff. It's just like, it doesn't even, they don't give a shit what day of the week it is, because it's the same. It's the same thing. They can't see their loved ones. They can't do all these things. It wouldn't surprise me at all, that lack of stimulus, particularly as well as you know, in psychology, it's easier to, like, memories are stored when there's like an emotion attached to them. And if every day is just a mindless, dissociated Groundhog Day, it wouldn't surprise me that there's short-term memory loss, and it's specifically short-term as well. Yeah. So it's like, what is there to remember, apart from these amazing lives that we do?
But I think the question here is, why is it linked to? They've linked it to COVID anxiety,
Correct.
Not that's the thing that they're reporting on. So
yeah, that's a great question. So it could be, are they linking it to people who are getting anxious within COVID, or is it literally specifically for the topic of COVID that they're getting anxious about?
Yeah, the cool thing is in this segment is that we also can have people start to question studies, not that we're invalidating them, but to question, going, okay, how are we differentiating that it's definitely the COVID anxiety that's causing it, without looking at the fact that there are other lifestyle things happening at the same time? So we can start to, not that we're questioning science at any case, but we can.
We're supposed to. That's
that's the name of the game.
Yeah, so I think that's where it's interesting, right? Here is I love this segment, because I think it helps us to go, okay, that's really interesting. Could it be also that it's related to, as Josh said, Groundhog's Day and so forth?
It's hard to quantify, isn't it?
Without knowing.
How would you separate that?
So skeptically, but
the problem is, when you're dealing with anxiety, you often search anxiety-related things, and people in the anxiety community will be coming across news articles such as this.
Right. Yeah. And I think generally from my patients, when you have anxiety, that memory loss is a thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
It was for me, 100%.
It's a big deal, right? You can remember like big events, but you're like, where did I put my wallet? Like those kind of things are really difficult when you're managing a lot of anxiety.
I remember I was working on the phones in a company that I used to work for, and I rang this client. I went through the whole spiel of everything I had to say, and I was anxious during that period. I put the phone down and I rang them back again, and they said to me, "You do realise you've spoke to me?" And honest to God, I really had no recollection that I'd ever spoke to him, and that then freaked me out. And caused a panic attack at the time, because I was like, geez, what's happening? So when people talk about these scary anxiety symptoms, that's definitely one example of me going through one.
Yeah. I forgot that we wrote a book, Dean.
Did you?
Forgot the title. What was the
So
title
did
again?
everybody else.
Oh, look at this! Look at this, Joe.
I don't. Oh yeah.
Untangle your anxiety.
Oh, brilliant. Where can I get that? Because I forgot that as well.
Links in the bio. Right, so let's get onto the topic, guys. I really enjoyed that, by the way. Just literally looking at the news, seeing what they're talking about anxiety. So, Drew, I think you came up with the topic idea again this week. The topic master. Why did you want to speak about self-sabotaging, and how did you experience it on your anxiety recovery?
Well, I mean, it's a thing, and you know what? I could give a big shout out to my Facebook group because it is always fertile ground for topics with such a large number of people discussing these things. And somebody, I can't remember who it was now, but you know who you are if you're watching. Thank you for bringing it up. And the question has come up several times. Like, I'm worried. Not so. Everybody worries that they're not going to get better. That's a very common fear. What if I never get better? But this is a very specific version of that. I'm afraid that I'm going to sabotage my recovery. Like I'm going to engage in self-sabotage. And I've seen that come up a couple of times, and it was fascinating to me. I actually had to ask, well, what does that mean to you? So it's not a thing that I personally had ever really considered, you know, self-sabotage. All right. He's getting all ready and wound up.
He's like pulling up his sleeve.
I know. He's got the biceps out.
But let me tell you,
I found it fascinating. So that's how it came up. And did I have to deal with that? I honestly, in all honesty, I've always, you know, upfront about my experience. I never confronted that in my experience. So I was a foreign concept to me that you would self-sabotage.
Josh, over to you.
There exists many people in this world who genuinely feel discomfort at achievement and doing good things for themselves. It's sad. It's one of the saddest parts when you see lovely, wonderful people who, when something good happens to them, there's a cognitive dissonance between acknowledging that it's happening to them. It's almost like it's just quite sad when it happens. So what you need to do is you need to be like, what I do as an integrative therapist is that I look at the reasons as to why you can't accept that. So if you're doing really well with your exposure and you do a successful exposure, I know some people that just refuse to acknowledge that because something good happened to them. And what I like to do is unpick why. What is it? And actually, you'll find a multitude of reasons. But, you know, like a standard reason will be actually receiving praise was never normalized to them. Receiving encouragement was never normalized to them. And that feeling is as alien as the exposure itself sometimes. And that's really important. And you've got to remember that, like, if people are getting stuck with exposures, it's like, actually, oh, not only am I doing this new feeling and exposing myself, but also I have a feeling of pride, self-satisfaction, happiness. I'm exposing myself to that too. It's completely new to me.
So let me take it from a different angle. And thank you, Josh, of course. I think our brain loves to come up with many ways in which you won't get the life you want. That's fear's job, right? Its job is to go, bad things might happen. Watch out for that. What if? And I also think it's a normal part of the brain's response to go, what if you've missed something? What if you're doing something wrong? And so I often will tell patients, if they're having the fear of self-sabotage, is to treat it like any fear, which is just content that the brain comes up with. Right? But in addition, and I know I weighed in on this in our previous chat, is I do have patients who get better and are so overwhelmed with how they have to catch up in life because anxiety has taken so much from them that they do say it's almost easier to be in the disorder So there are a couple of thoughts that we can extend on if we like.
Guys, I can see a
Somebody-
comment.
About the echo. Yeah. To be honest with you, Dean, I think it's are you using that blue microphone? Using the blue Yeti?
No, the smaller condensed one.
Okay. Because when you type, it's boom, boom, boom. It's loud and clear. The condenser is picking up everything.
I think last time, Dean, you used a different mic, didn't you?
Sorry, guys. We'll work it out.
1 second.
Yeah. Yeah. There's tremendous. I can hear the feedback loop.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah. We can hear you.
The echo on there, yeah.
Better?
That's better.
Oh, it's only Kim.
Oh, I could hear everyone echoing.
Oh, okay.
Maybe is it possible that it's restreamed?
It could be. It's possible because I know Josh and I don't hear an echo. So sorry, guys.
I can't hear Josh at all.
I just changed some of my settings. Did that help it?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
Muted.
Dean's echoing and Kim's echoing. Drew is not echoing.
Yeah, I don't hear echo. Sorry, guys. It
But we weren't
could be
echoing
restreamed.
before.
No, it started in the middle, right? Sorry.
Yeah. Kim's echoing.
Yours too.
It's literally restreaming.
Yes, literally, they've taken themselves very seriously. Yeah, let's try that.
In the meantime, I will convey my feelings about unqualified coaches through the modicum of expressive dance.
Oh, please no. Expressive dance.
Does everyone have on their settings the echo cancellation on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new setting. So, sorry, guys, we're working this out. Anyway. Okay,
How
so
am I now?
Just well, let's get. So someone's come up with a great question about exposure. I can just hear the echo. Everyone but Drew is echoing. Guys, we might have to cut the episode.
nah, let's let it roll.
Keep it going, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I got a great question, and that was: is exposure valuable if you don't feel anxiety within the exposure?
Oh, goodness.
I tried just headphones with a mic in. Try that. Am I echoing, by the way?
No.
Yeah, you are for me.
Yeah.
This has got to be a restream thing. It has to be.
Yeah.
I'm the
Here we
only
go.
one not echoing. Yeah.
Dean is great. Dean is great. Dean is great. Dean is great. Dean is great.
Drew, and because it's through your stream, maybe that's why it's not echoing.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking it's a restream thing. If I'm the only one not echoing, it's my stream. So
Yeah.
something's up.
Did you get the question? I repeated it 5 times.
Yes, I got it. That one is exposure?
Yes.
I can talk for all. Yeah, great. Me, the guy with losing his voice. Is exposure useful if you don't feel anxiety?
Yes.
Josh, you're just super low for me now, by the way. You're quiet. You're super quiet now.
I'll answer the question.
Go for it.
Exposure is not just about anxiety. So if your fear is anxiety, then you should have anxiety in exposure. Some people don't have anxiety, they have disgust obsession. So then the exposure should focus on disgust. And some people have uncertainty, and therefore the focus should be uncertainty. So you don't have to have anxiety for the exposure to work.
Great answer.
It would depend on the fear. We might generalize that question to discomfort.
It would depend on the aversion.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you're towards the end of your anxiety recovery, then you might be dealing with less anxiety as it is anyway.
Yeah.
But that's a common mistake, though, because I think a lot of people get caught in, I'm trying to find a way to do my exposures without the discomfort, or with, like that. If I do it and I don't have anxiety, that's a good one, but that's not really a good one. Like in the end.
Next question, guys. How do we tell the difference between self-sabotaging and actually needing a rest? Anyone?
Well, I think maybe we want to, before we move forward, we may want to define what self-sabotage is, right? So self-sabotage, from my perspective, is where you're getting in your own way based on what's best for your long-term recovery, right? And that's even a broad term, because sometimes we can just do the best we can. Would you guys agree with that as a definition of self-sabotage?
Yeah, and I think it has to be, it's either intentional, or maybe it's a little bit not intentional, but yet not desired. I know I'm doing this, but I don't want to be, or I am intentionally doing this. I'm going to throw a grenade into my recovery. So I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, so this person is literally saying them taking a rest is that sabotaging the anxiety recovery? Should they still be continuing to do exposure?
Well, I don't believe in, I don't think so. Mental illnesses don't really have time to rest, meaning like I've often, if a client says to me, I'm going to take off a month, that's fine. I'm not against them taking off a month, but as long as you know that you won't take a lot of steps in recovery for that month. So I think that it's okay to take a rest, but to also be really aware of the outcomes. Is that self-sabotage? No. Sometimes you need to take off a month to get your motivation back up and get through the holidays or whatever you want. And so again, it's self-sabotage. You could look at it from the lens of, are you doing it from a place of self-judgment, like this is bad and I'm bad for doing it, or just sometimes we can't perform at our highest.
Interestingly, the person in my group who had asked about self-sabotage, when I asked them about it, it wasn't self-sabotage at all, or I would not have defined it. He was just concerned, like, what if I start to latch on to the anxious thoughts again, and I start to those old habits? And I'm like, well, that's normal. Everybody struggles with those things. That's not self-sabotage unless you're intentionally doing it, or you have a habit of doing that and you can't stop yourself and you don't want to be doing that. So it's a gray area. It's a weird area, you know? Yeah.
I saw a great question just on Facebook there. Does exposures become a compulsion if they're used as a way to get less anxiety leading up to a big event? Josh.
Say that again, Dean. Leading up, what was it? Leading up to a big event?
Yeah, I'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Come on. Wow, the technology gods are just against us today.
Do exposures become a compulsion if they're used as a way to get less anxiety leading up to a big event?
There you go.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think exposures. I mean, it's paradoxical, that sentence, because if you're exposing yourself to a feeling that you don't want, then that can't be a compulsion, really. A compulsion is when you do something to minimize the discomfort that you want to feel. But if you're doing true exposure, then yeah, I think what I take from that is that what I hear a lot is people misconstrue what exposure means. They just think that if I go stand somewhere and white knuckle for a bit, that's exposure. When actually, no, I'd probably say, no, the more exposures, the better in anticipation to an event. That's what I would do, definitely. And I don't think it becomes a compulsion unless your interpretation of exposure is not correct.
Or the goal. What's the target that person is aiming at? I must get less anxiety before the wedding, as opposed to I must get better at actually experiencing and moving through this anxiety. So when I go to this wedding, I will do better that way. So I think that could be a bit of a thing. I must do more exposures so that I have less anxiety. That could be a bit, I've seen that turn into a compulsive behavior with people.
Remember that compulsions are usually a repetitive behavior we do with urgency. So if you're doing it, of course, with the goal of getting better, that is recovery, that's treatment. But if you're doing it with urgency of like, this must go away, there is probably a very good chance that you're doing it to rid yourself, like to try and remove anxiety from your life. And if you're doing it in that urgent way, you might be in trouble.
100%. So once, but I've noticed self-sabotage feel like a pattern, just like my other disordered thinking. So it can happen subconsciously.
The Grand Canyon comment is so funny.
Yeah, the recovery room, the Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon edition. We are bringing you around to all the natural wonders of the world. This is what it would sound like. We are helping you recover in the Grand Canyon.
And we're willfully tolerating this uncomfortable echo.
Surrender to the echo.
Yes.
A new definition of an echo chamber.
Drew, can you get that Hume Sewa comment up? I think they've asked a couple of times.
Yeah. Sure. We'll throw it up. Okay. Well, actually, do we want to take the one self-sabotage feel like a pattern, like so it can happen? Oh, that really wasn't a question. It was more of a comment. Okay. So this question, I've been going through very bad digestive issues to the parent I can't get out.
Say it. Say the word, Drew.
Oh, poop. Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I have no aversion to the word poop. We'll just say it for the rest of the
I just wanted to hear you say pooping.
You don't have to repeat it. The echo will repeat it.
Poop.
Yeah.
It's a super common topic. You guys know that. Like a lot of people get fixated on the whole pooping thing. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We should do a poop session.
Maybe.
I've done some weird things in my time, but no.
I love you guys, but I don't. You're gonna have to explain that before I agree to it.
I mean a recovery room on poop. Sorry.
What, like defecating?
All right, that's better.
ASMR.
Made a left turn fast.
Some weird.
See, everybody thinks Kim is so sweet, but now you see how you see.
Yeah.
Someone's put, is wanting to be alone and go through an anxiety disorder self-sabotaging, or should I be getting other people involved?
Wait, did we answer that question now about the digestive issues? Like, I don't think we did. Let me just assure you, this is a super common thing. Like, we actually have words for it. We have phrases that everybody understands. I had butterflies in my stomach. I thought I was going to hurl. I had to run to the bathroom. Nobody questions that. Like, yes, that's an issue. You know, it's not an uncommon issue. It's not a pleasant issue, but I think like anything else, when you treat that as a special kind of thing, you know, we have bathrooms and we have ways to do that. And we have to learn to work our way through those unpleasant things. So it's not an unusual thing. The whole, I'm having digestive issues, very common.
100%. I said to you guys with the flight anxiety, so before getting on a plane, I'd just literally be in the bathroom like until they were calling my name. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? How much do you reckon is in this where they say your ancestors would get rid of all the waste because they didn't need it to run away from the things that were in the danger? Is there any science behind that, or is that just?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have all of these physiological processes that help us because of our need to run away from danger or freeze from danger. So some people say they need to urinate, some say they need to defecate, and that does provide you the ability to run longer distances because you've got half a pound or less inside you, or more, depending on what your bowel movements look like. So absolutely. Same for vomiting. Sorry, I'm being serious.
This is why we can't have nice things.
The same goes for vomiting. I have some clients who will vomit in exposures quite regularly, and that's just their body's way of eliminating weight, and that's part of the normal body's reaction of getting rid of it. Sorry. I am a lady.
Wow.
Oh my God, I made him leave.
Wow. Poor Dean. All right. Oh goodness. All right, let's
I think he's choking on his drink.
I think so too. I think he had Coke down the wrong well. There you go, he's back. You okay, brother?
Yeah.
I literally got you out of your chair. I win.
We knew this was going to be so entertaining today.
I literally win today's recovery room live.
I don't know. I think the person not echoing is winning.
Yeah, evidently, I'm the only one that's supposed to be talking today. And I cannot trust you guys to talk anyway, clearly. Going off the rails.
Right. Drew, I don't know if you want to pick it up.
Yeah, I'll pick it up. That's fine. So what was the question? The last question that you brought up, Dean? Let's head up back to that. Before you inhaled half a can of Coca-Cola. Do you remember what the last question is? I'll grab a question. That's fine. I will grab a question. So one of the things that is, here's a common one. We should talk about one of the things I want to talk about too is the self-sabotage. Like, I'm afraid to be better. We're done. We're off the rails. I'm muting everybody. That's it. It's over.
The irony, the beautiful, not irony, the romanticism of having an episode that says self-sabotage.
And right. And here we are just firing repeatedly into our own collective foot. I love it. Oh, sorry, guys. Hopefully it's entertaining.
Yeah.
Let's try this one. Can you please tell me how to stop thinking is that self-sabotage? Thinking that she's never going to get better. Is that self-sabotage?
No, that's self-doubt.
Right.
Self-sabotage is different. Self-sabotage is when it's an impulsion often. My mum does this a lot, where she'll be doing really well and then just suddenly that feeling's unusual, and there's an impulse to kind of almost out of intrigue to see what would happen if I do that. How strong are the foundations here of this? How strong are the foundations here of this positive feeling? That's self-sabotage. It's when people go, how strong is it? How can it resist this? And a lot of the time, no. And often self-sabotage does have some kind of deep roots, honestly. I know that I always bang on about roots to stuff, particularly with anxiety disorders and how they're a load of crap. But in general, with self-sabotage, it does have layers, and it's usually to do with harbored anger and stuff. I know mine was. I used to self-sabotage all the time because I had anger and grief and survivor guilt that I just never spoke about, outside the realms of an anxiety disorder. So, yeah, I would honestly look at self-sabotage separately. I'd extrapolate it from your recovery and look at it separately. That's my opinion, and my opinion is gospel.
So many people, when they're going through an anxiety disorder at the start, don't think that they're going to come out the other end. I know that when I at the start of my panic disorder, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was nobody telling me that they'd been through an anxiety disorder. I literally thought that was me. That is super common, that, yeah.
I think it's important to identify the source of your thinking without being analytical. Depression is very commonly presented as negative thoughts. So we wouldn't call someone with depression as having self-sabotage. Self-doubt, as Joshua said, is another presentation that we wouldn't call self-sabotage. That being said, I do think there are some cases where we do say really self-critical things because it's it's the saying, it's better the devil you know. Sometimes it's easier to say you won't get better. I've had clients where, and I've really questioned them, like, why would you say that? They'll say, it's just so scary, the idea of getting better. I have so much grief about it. And so it can be complex. I think it's important that people speak with a therapist if they have access to one, to help them, number one, be assessed correctly to make sure they don't have depression, which could be what's going on.
Yeah, look at this. Nikki made a really good comment along those lines, Kim. Like, I myself do feel a bit scared of recovery, not knowing how my life will be without this long-term anxiety. So I think that sometimes self-sabotage, like, well, I'm a little bit afraid to be better because now I have to show up. Now I have to engage. And I've been in this bubble for a long time that I hate, but at least it's safe and it's comfortable, and people will sort of accommodate me a bit, and I don't have to do stuff. Yet you don't want to be in that bubble. So I get that.
Did any of you guys deal with that? The fear of wanting to recover? Because I'm just going off a personal experience. I really couldn't relate to that, because the one thing I wanted to do was get back to this non-anxious me. And yeah, why does that occur from a clinical point of view or of any of your experiences?
There's a spectrum of reasons as to why. I mean,
Right.
when we discuss anxiety disorders, there's usually a formula that we all kind of meet with, give over with your compulsions, no safety behaviors, expose yourself to the stimuli, things like that. But I do believe that there are things that are external, outside the realms of an anxiety disorder that work. So, for example, I'll be very honest here and share an evocative story that would be hilarious with an echo. But like when I was 90% recovered from an anxiety disorder, there was a part of me that didn't feel like I deserved to, because I lost my brother at the time. And I didn't. And I did self-sabotage, and I did do these things, and I did sit inside and wallow in depression and anxiety, because deep down, when I worked with a therapist, it's because it was like, why am I here? Why is my little brother not? And people have this shit going on in their life all the time. It's not just, this is the anxiety disorder. There's shit going on around that. If you're in an abusive marriage, you might not think that you deserve to get better. You don't deserve your autonomy, your independence, if someone's constantly dripping to you that you don't deserve that. It's the anxiety disorder itself as a mechanism is the same, and we all sing off the same hymn sheet. But there are things that exist outside that I do recommend counseling for. Don't take your anxiety disorder to counseling, because a lot of people don't get it. You can do that. You can use psychoeducation. But I do love counseling when there's just shit going on, particularly when there's stuff that's really, really heavy, because that can be a hindrance to your recovery from anxiety disorder.
So would you say it's more common with people who are dealing with anxiety and depression to not want to recover?
Well, I actually sometimes just lose the labels there. So I didn't have when I was 90% recovered from anxiety disorder, I didn't have anxiety or depression. I wouldn't have met the nice criteria. This is why I'm always skeptical with things like this, because clinically I wouldn't have met any of that. But I had my own shit just going on personally. You couldn't pigeonhole that stuff.
The I don't feel worthy of recovery is more common than we think, and it's heartbreaking. So I'm with you, Josh. Like,
Yeah.
that's a tough place for someone to be.
Yeah.
And so I'll add, because I think that deservingness is a huge reason people self-sabotage. For me, it wasn't a huge part of my recovery, but it was a big part of sort of me really thriving as someone who had anxiety. Was I would self-sabotage because if I really finished it and really hit all of the final pieces, then I wouldn't, like, I was using it as a reason to rely on my partner, right? Like, if I did it all on my own, then I have to do it on my own. And that was really scary for me. So I would kind of self-sabotage a little bit to keep my dependence on him, until I was like, wait, this is keeping me so stuck in so many areas. And that's where that final, I even talked about this recently. I'm still recently just catching this, like, I'm here in America by myself, no family, just my husband. And I didn't realize I was self-sabotaging in some areas because I was like, oh, I need to make sure this person is here. And that was a big recovery revelation for me.
Really interesting. Someone's put, I suppose anxiety means you give yourself attention, albeit negative. How can we change our self-attention to nice things? Drew.
Looking for that. Yeah, I'll put it up here. That's Nikki again. So I think the one thing that I would probably point out initially, and there's a ton of great, I think, responses. Kim is going to have a bunch. She's the queen of self-compassion, and then there's a lot of good stuff in here I know is going to come out. But I would probably caution you to expectations matter. Like, in these situations, we do not get to just decide to think different. Like, oh, I have to just think nice things about myself. That's the whole sort of like pop psychology, like flip the thought, turn the negative into a positive. Like, you having bad thoughts, think happy thoughts. We can't. If we could do that, we would not be here doing the recovery room right now. We wouldn't have to. So,
Drew, just before you carry on, what do you think about when they say that, well, if you continue to do it, almost do it as a practice, that your brain then starts to believe and agree that this pattern might be maybe these positive things you're saying about yourself are true.
I mean, I could tell you what my experience is in a large crowdsourced environment is. That doesn't work long term. You know, it's sort of a form of thought suppression or thought changing, which is pretty well studied at this point, and we know that doesn't work so well. It's a good framing thing. So, like, yes, I need to be kinder to myself. I need to try and find the positives in my life. All reasonable statements, but we can't take it to the extreme that says, well, I should just find a way to be able to think differently. I should just think different, because we just can't. We don't get to decide what we think. We get to decide how we interpret what we think and how we react to what we think, but we don't generally get to decide to do that, especially when those thoughts become really strong and repetitive and intrusive. We can't just decide to think different things. It just doesn't seem to work. And it tends to cause more distress. I can't stop these thoughts. I can't turn them into positive thoughts. So, we talk all the time about leading with behavior more than anything else. You act different. And I know that sounds crazy too, but you act different before you think different in my world. And that,
I think the best example that I give, not blowing my own trumpet, but
do it.
no, two people can have the same thought, but the behavior towards the thought creates completely different reactions. So someone could think anxiously towards that, and then they would get an emotional and physical response to that. Whereas Josh, for example, might think of the same thought and he'll have a completely different response. So it's not the actual thought that's the issue, it's your behavior towards the thought.
Yeah, like for example, like we could have the thought, I want to read Untangle Your Anxiety, but then you might have the impulse to buy the audiobook, and I might have the impulse to buy the paperback edition.
Wow.
I would say to this is, I think there's a beautiful intention into wanting nice things, into wanting to think nice things. But I think that we've missed, like Drew said, we've missed the mark in that you don't just stick to positivity. So instead of going, how can I think nice things? I would actually first start with, how can I be nice when things aren't nice? Right? That's a change in perspective that lands better, particularly for people who have an anxiety disorder or shame or grief or whatever it might be. So I think I would first start with tending to your pain before jumping to positivity. I think that there is way more effective outcomes in that approach.
Interesting. That's a really good response.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think that, well, if I just continually say these positive statements to myself, that eventually come true. And then, like you say, there could be the frustration that it's not coming true, and they could actually take a backward step. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be really difficult.
Guys, we're coming up to the hour mark. I don't know if there's any questions you want to highlight that you can see in the chat or anything before we wrap it up.
There was one that I wanted to bring up. I know Victoria has asked several times, which is, she's saying, how do I stop the bad experience during exposure? I'll try and find it, but it's up there. Here you go. How do you stop a negative experience during exposure from stopping you repeating the exposure? Right. So that she's essentially saying, well, I do my driving exposures. I feel really bad during those exposures, and therefore I don't want to do them again. And so we should probably address that. That's an expectation.
I think that goes back to Josh, when you always say, when clients come to you and say, I haven't been anxious this week, you tend to like, well, that's no good, because that doesn't mean that you practice your response to the anxiety. So yeah, dealing with the bad response during the exposure, that's all part of the recovery.
Yeah, that's
go practice being anxious. Go practice. Go. How good at you at being anxious? That's that in a nutshell. How good can you get at being anxious? And we're talking to Dean, who's always had like a lifelong fear of flying, and when he went to fly, he went in with that mentality. How good can I at being anxious? And he did really well, better than he's ever done. with help from Kim and mockery from me and Drew. He got through it.
His real friend and his two bad friends.
Can I, with all sincerity, and I want all of your opinions here, because I know Sophie, and Sophie is doing exposure with driving anxiety. I know it's not necessarily self-sabotage, but whilst she's watching and I've got you guys here, can you give your best tips for driving anxiety to Sophie? Because it applies to other anxiety too. But give your best tips to Sophie, and let's hear what the pros and Kim have to say.
I'll kickstart. So we drive. People think that because I'm driving and I get anxious, that it must mean that it's fearful, that I'm in a dangerous situation. Well, people often forget that when you're anxious, what does that mean? You're more alert, you're more focused. So when you're anxious and driving, the likelihood is that you're actually going to be driving better than if you wasn't anxious. So if you get anxiety while driving, my advice would be to continue, but always know that if you have to pull over, it's not the end of the world. You can pull over and then continue on your journey. But just because you're getting anxious and driving, it doesn't mean that you have to stop driving.
Yeah, that was my jam. The driving anxiety thing was 100% my jam. And I spent so much time driving around feeling completely derealized, completely depersonalized, like in full panic. And I learned that, I'd pull over once in a while in the beginning, but then I learned, well, I could go another few minutes. And what Dean just said is really magical in certain instances, because what I discovered was when I would be in the habit of like, I got to hurry up and get home, I was driving at like Formula One levels at that point. You're no kidding. Like you're going through traffic, and you're amazing at navigating the car. So if you've ever been in a driving situation where you panic and you run home, I want you to think about how quickly you're able to get home repeatedly and not wreck that car. And again, though, you can always pull over, but it's about learning that just because that alarm is really loud, this is dangerous. It feels so dangerous. It doesn't mean that it's true. And I know that driving feels like a special thing because it's a car, and I know driving is dangerous. If you have to pull over, you can pull over and then get going again. It's just a repetitive thing. It really is in the end.
What would you say if they said, my arms feel like jelly, my legs feel like I'm going to lose control, and what if I can't pull over? What if I'm on the ring road or the freeway and there's nowhere to pull over?
Sorry, go on.
It's okay. I would 100% take a flamethrower to the words feels like. 100%.
Oh, you love feels like. I love it.
Feels like, it feels like, and it never has been. And sometimes I know I get a little heat for that. Ooh, flamethrower heat, making little fire puns here. But like I would take a flamethrower to the feels like, because feels like is dragging you up and down the street and embarrassing you and ruining your life. And if you keep following what it feels like, even though reality keeps showing you that it isn't that, then this is what happens.
Yeah, I just wanted to give an example.
Yeah, brutally.
When I often go hiking, so I can be on the side of a cliff and I get that exact feeling of my legs feeling wobbly and what you just said that the lady deals with. Now that's a response to my body wanting to protect me from not falling off the cliff. So I think that she should relate to that it's your natural response. It's your body's natural response to keeping you safe. I didn't fall off the cliff. I'm still here. Although I did fall off the cliff in this episode. That's for sure.
Oh, we were so close. We were like hanging on.
Everyone was saying they loved it though, so maybe we should have more.
We still have people here. It's amazing. I used to. I'll give you a quick before we start to wrap it up. I used to be in the car driving to my office in the days that I had to do that in the midst of my recovery, and I would felt like I can't feel my legs. Do I really feel my legs? And for a little while, I had this ridiculous ritual where I would get out of the car, walk in the building, and I had to go to the second floor. I would look to see if anybody was in the lobby, and I would jump up the stairs like a frog because I needed to prove to myself that I did feel my legs.
Your legs.
Yes. And how crazy is this after doing that 3 or 4 times and realizing I wish I had video of doing that.
Is this why you have Kermit the Frog behind you?
Very possible. Maybe that's why I'm so partial to Kermit, but I did it 3 or 4 times and I thought, this is insane. I'm literally like, I'm reinforcing this. This is the wrong thing to do. But it did teach me like, feels like is bullshit. My legs were fine. I was jumping up 2 and 3 stairs at a time while convinced that my legs were rubber and not working. So I have no sympathy for feels like. I have sympathy for you, just not the feels like.
It's not the and no, it's not your body's response to tell you to stop driving. No,
No.
it's a part of your
No.
brain suggesting that.
Right.
You've
don't
interpreted
listen.
it that way.
Yeah.
So all I will add here is anytime I'm doing driving exposures, we do a lot of psychoeducation around the practice of curiosity, staying curious, because naturally when we're anxious, we go to black and white thinking. This feeling means my body is shutting down. Me panicking means I'm dangerous. And we have all these beliefs. And so if you can bring curiosity, I sit in the passenger seat pre-COVID and they'll be like, I'm freaking out. And I'll go, what else do you notice? And they'll be like, I can't feel my legs. And I'm like, what else do you notice? And that's all I do is I just sit there and have them work through all of these concrete, inflexible thoughts that they have. We're not correcting them. We're just working on noticing how the brain, when we're panicking, goes black and white. And your job, this muscle you can strengthen is curiosity in those processes.
Yeah. That's cool. Sophie, I don't know you, but I would let you drive me around right now. I swear to God, I would get in the car and let you drive me around anywhere.
And you can understand why people are so fearful of the driving, because obviously they're in control of a vehicle and there's people all around them driving. So you understand why the danger comes, that when they're feeling that anxiety, that they think that they're not going to be able to cope, or that they're going to put themselves or other people in danger. And it's only natural to ask them questions.
But how often do people get in the car and arrive at work and they can't remember a damn thing that how they got there? It's because you don't need all your faculties to drive to a place.
Honestly, yeah, I drive to work all the time, and all I'm listening to is the Panic Pod podcast available on Spotify and all major platforms.
We haven't seen one of these. We haven't had one of these episodes in a long time. He's in rare form today.
The analyst in me wants to know what's happening with Josh this week.
Yeah, something's up.
I had personal therapy on Tuesday. The subject of my father came up, and now I just want that.
I'm worthy. I'm worthy.
I am worthy.
I'm worthy. Love me.
Guys, I think that's a perfect place to end it.
Everybody tell Josh they love him. It's fine.
Yeah, it's been an interesting episode. I definitely think we should still post it. There's been some really good questions and answers in there, a little bit of comedy, and the echo that's growing on me. So I said the echo is growing on me. Can we have it every week?
Might be our new thing.
Yeah, maybe. But guys, are we working on anything this week, or is it just heads down and continuing doing what we do best, and that's support the anxiety community?
Yeah.
What are we working on?
I am working on creating systems for my staff, doing a lot of educating, getting them really set up. That's my big project this week.
Drew, I know you finished Untangle, the audio version. You got other projects at the moment?
Yeah, we're working on. Well, I can't really talk about it too much yet, but we're working on that new community site that we've been hatching behind the scenes. Yeah, so that we're going to start talking about very soon. That's been good.
Brilliant. And Josh, obviously, Microsoft. We finished with Microsoft, or are we still?
Pretty much got a couple more radio interviews finishing Microsoft. I'm working with people at the moment stuck in OCD recovery cults, based in the UK.
Just before we go ahead, can we talk about how great the documentary was? What did you guys think? Anyone
It's
want
good,
to?
isn't it?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, no, it is good. But yeah, I'm working on that. It's a bit quite complicated. Finishing Untangle Your Intrusive Thoughts, which is good. Reading Kimberly's book tomorrow that arrives finally. Don't know what they've been doing. I think they've been handwriting, but I'm really looking forward to reading that because there needs to be more literature on OCD and intrusive thoughts.
And the audio version of Untangle Your Anxiety will be coming out soon, and we promise you that it won't have this echo, or maybe it will.
Yeah, this is an example of Drew's audio.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's an echo, I'm doing something seriously wrong. So it was actually
People
really
saying the echo is gone, but I hear it.
figures.
Yeah, I hear it, but
There is no poop talk in Untangle Your Anxiety audiobook. It'll be fine.
I can vouch for that. I listened to the whole thing. It's good. It's good. You guys
That is why Drew is not part of the marketing team.
Have you noticed since Drew finished listening to the whole book, he ain't been anxious once?
I have not been anxious once. I'm losing my voice and I'm sick. I don't know if there's a correlation, but maybe. Anyway, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Drew. I think it's time to roll the credits.
Roll the clip. We'll see you guys next week.
Go.
Good luck.